Thinking of calling off my wedding due the mistreatment by my mill. I, 21F, am to be married in 4 months. Well, Sunday my fiancé, 24M, and I went to go scope out a potential venue. His birthday dinner was scheduled for that night and I texted his mother from his phone and told her I may be a tad late as we were looking at this venue and my father's birthday is on the same day and my mother asked me to pick him up a cake. Well, Mill replied seriously she didn't know I was the one texting her on his phone. I can't help but think she was implying it my fault we were gonna be late. Over the past year she's been trying to make little jabs at me, like while trying on wedding dresses she would say things like my son wouldn't like that one. He doesn't like white. The one that really stung, however, was a month or so ago she was talking about me going to Florida with them later this month, and I said I couldn't go BC I would be in school. When I told her I didn't want to do online classes before COVID made me have no choice, she said well by the looks of it, you don't do too well with in person either. Just stuff like that over the year has built up. Sunday I snapped and asked my fiancé to just talk to her for me and just ask that she tone it down with the remarks and comments. Well, she comes outside and asks me what's wrong. How she knew we were outside I'll never know. I stepped in the doorway of his house and asked him to come help me so we could talk privately about it. I tell her that her comments she makes toward me hurt my feelings and make me feel bad. Then Phil, Mill, and Bill proceed to sit me down at their table and pretty much say we've never heard Mill say anything to you. She loves you. She gets enough of this from her own family. She does anything you ask her to. What makes you think she would say that? My fiancé tried to stand up for me, but both his parents kept drilling him for specific times it's happened, and when he couldn't come up with it, they pretty much told him he didn't know what he was talking about. I told the in-laws I felt it was fiancé's place to stand up for me, and they disagreed, and this whole thing had blown up, and I'm thinking of potentially cancelling my wedding scheduled for February. I just need an unbiased point of view to help guide me in the right direction. Okay, time for the responses. You have a problem and it's not quite your fiancé. When you get a snide remark from Mill, you're supposed to end that kind of talk right there. You're an adult and have to command respect like one. Now that this conversation has happened, know that there's always going to be that elephant in the room. I wouldn't quite call things off, but you need to list your issues and approach it in organized fashion. What drives men nuts is their wife and mother not getting along. He loves you both and only wants peace. Love him enough to move in the direction of peace. Maybe invite Mill to lunch without the fiancé to have a discussion to clear the air. You have to always be prepared to react in the moment. I've found that many rude comments can be shut down by offering to have the other person explain themselves fully. I'm not sure what you mean. Can you say more? Clarify. What's your concern? Exactly. Works like a charm with any nasty innuendo, even racism, because it forces them into articulating what was previously a hinted meaning. He doesn't like white. Well, I didn't make the wedding dress rules. He's free to wear whatever color dress he wants to. A handful of non-committal acknowledgements. I'll take that into consideration when I make my decision. That's an interesting perspective. I'll ask him about that the next time I see him. My Mill was absolutely psycho. I literally had to run interference constantly. Fortunately, she lived 8 hours away. She always had digs. She once tried to give me a pair of pants so large that I could fold them in half and wrap them completely around my waist because they look like they'd fit me. I put myself inside one leg to prove a point and asked her what she thought of the fit. I gave no quarter on calling out her BS, doing my best to keep it goofy if I could, pointed if necessary. The most important thing is to separate your emotions. If she's being pointlessly witchy, you have to get a face that says that's so weird instead of my feelings are hurt. Otherwise, she wins. So my mom had a similar situation with her mill and the priest literally told her to not get married because unless my dad grew a pair before the wedding he never would. Flash forward 30 years he still has no balls with her and it's been a fight for over 30 years. Please see someone before the wedding to figure out if he can get some balls when it comes to his mother or this going to be a 30-year struggle. Shut this ish down. My wife's mother has always hated me, but she knows the line and she doesn't cross it. Early on, she would say petty things here and there, and after about a month of that I kinda freaked out and called her on it and she apologized. She doesn't even say hi to me anymore, and we just kind of have mutual understanding to keep our distance. Say something directly to her, or it will get worse. My wife and I have 2 kids, and have been together for 11 years. Update: we have decided to break up. I'm adding on to this update. He pretty much told me he was unhappy, and didn't think he was the man for me anymore. We both agreed it was a right person wrong time type thing. I'm honestly heartbroken. But thank you all for the advice, even the ones I didn't want to read. It really opened my eyes. I don't know if I'll be replying to messages as I need time to deal with this and heal. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. Okay, time for the next story. My wife and her family have always been extremely career focused. My wife and her sister was raised that it's their duty as women to be at the top of the professional game, not just breaking, but obliterating the glass ceiling. Her mother is proud that she went back to her C-level job a month after giving birth to each of her children. Thus, my wife has always made it a point of pride that she's been extremely successful in a highly male-dominated field, investment banking, and really enjoys living for work. She's on track to become the youngest ever female managing director at her firm, and one of the youngest ever MDs overall. I'm hugely supportive of this. I took a full year of parental leave when we had our first child 3 years ago, so that my wife could be 100% back to her job as quickly as possible. However, when my wife was pregnant with our second child earlier this year, she confessed to me that the experience of staying at home with our 3-year-old due to the pandemic had made her reevaluate her life priorities, that spending extended time with our child was far more rewarding than work ever was, and that after the birth of our second child, she's planning to quit her job entirely and be a SAHM for the next few years. I fully support her decision. We are easily able to afford the loss of her income, and after our second child was born a couple months ago and my wife quit her job, I've never seen her happier. Her mother and sister are absolutely appalled with her decision. They've tried to convince her that she's falling into the trap that kills the careers of many successful women, that her decision to be a SAHM is due to societal pressure, and that she's even being a bad woman by succumbing to traditional gender norms. Both my mill and Sil have tried to get me on their side and talk some sense into my wife, but I refuse. She is her own person capable of making her own decisions, and I will fully support her choices. As a result, I've had a complete falling out with my in-laws. They've called me misogynistic, that's it so convenient, that the woman has to give up her position of power but you don't, and even accused me of wanting to kill my wife's career due to jealousy, that she would soon significantly out-earn me. When my wife denies this and defends her choice and my support of it, my in-laws treat her like a victim. This really upsets both of us. It's incredibly patronizing to my wife to assume that she's some weak victim caving to societal pressure and not making her own autonomous decision, and incredibly insulting to me to assume that I'm some male chauvinist monster who wants to sabotage her career. Anything we say to defend her choice just makes them dig in more. Any advice on salvaging our relationship with Mill/Sil, or are we just going to have to deal with them despising us for the rest of our lives? Since the submission rules ask for it, wife and I are in our mid-30s, been together for about 10 years. Sil is in her 30s, Mill is in her 70s. We are all located in the US. Okay, time for the responses. First of all, this is your in-laws' problem, not yours. You and your wife made this decision jointly, and the two of you are the only ones who need to be involved in this decision. Second, in the future, whenever they try to bring this up again, enforce your boundaries. Simply say, when they start on the same rant, I won't discuss this any further, and mean it. If they're in the room with you, I won't discuss this any further, and if they persist, leave the room. If you're on the phone, I won't discuss this any further, and if they persist, end the call. If you're at their house and they start in, I won't have this discussion, and if they persist, leave. If they are at your home, I won't have this discussion, and if they persist, ask them to leave. And you'll need your wife's support on this one. In short, refuse to discuss it with them any longer and do whatever it takes to get the point across. This subject is verboten in your presence. First of all, I think it is really great that you and your wife are on the same page here. I know a lot of marriages where this is not the case, so thumbs up for that. It sounds to me as if Sil and Mil are worried and afraid and want to protect their sister/daughter. I think that deserves some respect. On the other hand, however, your wife is a grown woman and sounds totally capable of making those hard decisions our parents warned us about. Maybe you and your wife could take some time preparing to explain to Sil and Mil in detail why this is the right step and how exactly this has benefited both your lives and those of the kids. Maybe this will ease the fear. While they sound like assholes, you should definitely talk to your wife every now and then and make sure she's okay with the situation of being a stay-at-home mom. If there's anything she needs like a break, etc. While it might feel good now and she enjoys it, what happens over the coming years and then eventually the kids grow up and leave? She was fine with a career before, she might want that again at some point down the road. There's not much you can do about the in-laws. They have to come around on their own. Talk to your wife about a plan, especially with regards to their behavior around the kids. When it comes to your wife's decision, you don't want them showing up and bad-mouthing your wife, especially in front of the kids. You can still maintain a relationship, but it needs boundaries for now. Other than that, try to form stronger friendships and build stronger relationships with your family and the family members on her side who support her. Try to get them more involved in your lives. There's no need to cut out the sister or mother, but it's important to have positive people who support her as well to drown them out. As long as you and your wife can stay on the same page, you can overcome this. As the others have said, this really isn't your problem, it's the Mils and Sils. Hopefully, once you can settle into the routine with your children, they will come around. It may take a while, but if you can stand your ground long enough, hopefully they will get the message. Have a nice Thanksgiving. Thank you for watching to the end. If you enjoy relationship stories, please hit the like button. And before you go, I would love for you to subscribe. Thank you and see you in the next one.